Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf where we talk about books. Today is a reading update. I've finished 3 books since last we checked in and it was a mixed bag. I will say that. I had some I absolutely adored, some that were just pure fun and unique, and then there was one that was just smack in the middle for me. One that I loved some elements of and others that were just not so much my favorite. So we're going to break it all down today. And just a quick recap for any of you watching too. There have been a couple of author interviews in the last couple weeks, so go check those out if you're interested in learning more about authors, their work behind the scenes, and the books that they've written too. Let's dig into the books that I've read over the last little bit, and the first one is Blood of the Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the Witcher series. This was my first time reading the actual books with The Witcher, and yes, I do know that there are 2 short story collections. Prior to this, however, this was gifted to me by a family member and was recommended to me to read, so that is where I started. Was it the best place? I don't know. But I did overall enjoy myself. There were some things that didn't quite work for me, and this is the one that was a bit of a mixed bag in terms of my reading experience, but overall I had a good time with it. I enjoyed so much of the characters and the world, apart from Triss. Triss was part of the mixed bag for me. There was just a couple of pages towards the beginning where we learn more about Triss's character that just felt out of place. It did not necessarily feel like it was meant to be part of her character. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, it just felt off to me in terms of character continuity or character personalities. Maybe the short stories go into that a little bit better, but it is just 2 whole pages of her talking about her bedroom life, and it just feels odd to me. So maybe I'm wrong. If you've read this and you have an answer for that, by all means, leave it in the comments below. It just felt out of place and a little uncomfortable in terms of her characters. So apart from that, I adored the other characters, the conflict, the world. I used to play the Witcher game. I think it was the 3rd one that I had played. I did not get entirely far because I am a side quest girl, but I did thoroughly enjoy the world and the characters. So getting to read where it was inspired from, the original story, was an absolute delight. The writing style was another part that was a bit of a mixed bag for me. At points, I would absolutely adore the writing style. It's very dialogue heavy, I found. And at other points, I couldn't connect to it as well as I had in other scenes. I'm not quite sure what it was. It could have just been me as a reader, but I do tend to read more poetic and detail-oriented writing style, so this may just be the difference there in this being very little detail. We don't even know what the characters look like entirely because they're never really described. So yes, very heavy in dialogue for the characters and writing style. I still enjoyed it. I had a blast with it. The conflicts are fascinating, and I am very interested in continuing because I do want to see what happens, what is contained in these stories, and I believe it is The Time of Contempt. That is book 2. Now, if you have a recommendation or suggestion on whether or not I should start with the short stories first and then continue on with the actual trilogy, by all means, let me know. Like I said, I got a recommendation and I went with it. And yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed the characters. Dandelion, the audiobook, I also listened to that, and they pronounced it Dandelion. Not sure if that's how it's supposed to be. Fandoms might come for me. I don't know. But it was an absolute blast between Dandelion and Yennefer. Those scenes were just comedy. I loved it. After that, I finished a novella, and that was Performances of a Death Metal Bard by Rob Lee, which was recently released. It's short in page count. I believe it's around 140 some pages, and it is so unique. It incorporates death metal music with magic in terms of battles and action. It was so much fun. So this follows a death metal bard named Mandy, who is pretty well an outcast because he chooses to paint his face with white paint and of course the metal style details, black artwork on it, and wears a trench coat, all of those things, and carries a blood red lute with him. So he is not overly welcome in many places. He tries his best to travel between villages, towns, and tries to do performances with his style of music, which has been hard because his original lute, just he had a hard time getting the right sound out of that instrument for what he was striving for, being death metal. And I mean, the kingdom has no idea what this style of music is, so of course it's gonna be a little different for them. That being said, Mandy comes across a blood red lute that ends up whispering things to him about murder and vengeance. And he ends up on a episodic adventure to try and fulfill the lute's wish, among other things. Being an outcast, being so different from other people in his world and the towns, he sticks out like a sore thumb. People often keep their distance to him, but his personality, regardless of that, is just absolutely endearing. The adventures he goes on was so much fun and thrilling. There was a lot of action, a lot of violence. So yeah, just keep that in mind too. There is some brutal scenes in there as well. But at the same time, you also get these wholehearted moments of just pure wholesomeness. There are found family, found friendships in this, despite him being so different and scary looking to other people and outcasted. He goes on a whole journey. It is so much fun. And like I said, the music and the magic system, the way it's incorporated along through this story with lyrics and just all of it is brilliantly done. Very unique. I don't think I've read anything quite like it, and it left a lasting impression. I had a great time with it, and I highly recommend you check it out. It is unique, it is different, but incorporates so much of fantasy with such a unique spin that I had a hard time putting it down, and it was immersive as well on top of that, which we always love. It's also a novella, so go check it out. Finally, I read Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This has been a few weeks in the works. My poor and very patient library, thank you so much for waiting while I renewed my audiobook loan, because it took a while to get through this, and I loved the process of immersion reading this. Now, it's been a while since I read The Way of Kings, and despite that, I felt like I had a decent enough memory to continue straight into Words of Radiance. I'd been meaning to start this for probably over a year now, and the time had just come. So it was fantastic. It was pretty well what everyone I had talked to had told me to expect. That I can definitely see why this is so many readers' favorite out of the series so far. And I will say for myself, the first half was a bit of a slower burn than I was expecting. I know this is a big, chunky, beefy book, but there was a certain point where I was getting frustrated that things weren't moving forward. And that's just my own impatience, because I had a suspicion about where things were going to go, and I just wanted to get there. I just wanted to see what was going to happen. I figured the reveals and the connections that happen towards the end of the book were going to happen, and I am so, so happy they did. And now I'm scared to continue, because it's just means a whole other bag of mess for the characters, and I am here for it. Just for a context of pacing in terms of this, because it is a 1,300 page book, is beefy. The first 600 to 700 pages I took rather slow. Like I said, I was getting a little frustrated, antsy with getting to certain developments within the story and character arcs. And it was still a fantastic experience, but yeah, I got antsy. And after that, things started to snowball for me. I think the last 400 pages I binged in one day, which is very, very unlike me. Typically, I don't have that much free time. My husband took our son for the day, and I had an opening, and boy, did I take it. Some things, like I said, I did see coming. Others just completely blindsided me, and I loved it. There were twists and turns in this. I was not expecting developments, and oh, the reveals with the world building. I love the foreshadowing and then the satisfying reveals when we get information about magic systems and world building. I live for that in books just as much as I live for the character development and character-driven storytelling. So This was just a phenomenal read. I am very excited to continue with Oathbringer, which I have on my nightstand. I am ready to dive in, but before I do that, I am going to be diving in to the next one. And the reason for this is because I have a highly anticipated release and I was very kindly gifted an ARC for it. So I want to read that before the release date, hopefully, if timing works out. But that is The Wingspan of Treason by L.N. Bain. So yes, this is going to be one that I am diving into next. I do currently have one read on the go at the moment. We'll talk about that in a second. But this is one that I will be picking up. I have heard nothing but good things about this. So I am very excited to dive into this. And what I am currently reading, I will probably finish later on today, is a novella. Again, this is an ARC that was very kindly provided to me by the author, and that is Wild Skies by K.E. Andrews. This is a fantasy western novella, so it's not too long. I believe it's around 140 pages. It's releasing on November 22nd if you want to go take a look at that. But it is essentially following a bounty hunter named Dale as he goes on a dangerous adventure to try and get one of the biggest marks in the area, and his goodest boy Bean the dragon, who's just the best. I love animal companions, but then you give an animal companion vibe with a dragon. I love it. So that is what I'm currently reading. I'm only about 40 pages in at the moment, so a bit of a ways to go to the end, but I am planning to enjoy every moment because so far it has been just that. And that is everything so far. I feel like I made some pretty good progress in the last couple weeks since the last reading update. It's time to read gets harder and harder to find as my child gets older. More responsibilities come up, things happen, especially this time of year with the holidays. Free time can be hard to come by. So I am thrilled I was able to get so much reading time in the last little bit. And I am so looking forward to the next reads to come. And yes, if you are wondering, Legacy of the Brightwash is still on the table. I am slowly working through that too. In the meantime, what have you been reading? I'd love to hear if you've had any new favorites, if there's one that you also had a bit of a mixed bag on. It happens. So leave your comments down below. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching and take care of yourselves.